Gunvolt is actually one of my favourite platformer series. It really fills the Mega Man void in my heart while also being distinct in its own right. When it comes to trophy hunting though, it's a real mixed bag of difficulty. As such, I decided to rank every game's platinum trophy from easiest to hardest. But first, some rules. First, though the title says Platinum Trophy, there are actually a fair few games that don't have a plat, but I'm still including them with 100% of trophies being the equivalent of a Platinum. Second, as you can probably tell, I'm using PlayStation lingo, and this normally doesn't matter at all, but on PlayStation, Gunvolt 1 and 2 actually have a shared list as the Striker Pack. However, the trophies within that are the same as each individual game's Steam achievements, so for this list, I will be looking at each game individually and not counting the Striker Pack. Third, this is being ranked with the idea that you're specifically going for trophies and will look up anything online and do anything you need to do them. This is so the actual harder to execute games are higher ranked than the annoyingly hidden collectibles and things to that effect. Finally, and this is the most important one, this is just a bit of fun. If you disagree with me and struggle with things I found easy and vice versa, that's totally fine, and I'd love to hear about it in the comments. But now let's start this ranking with the one and only rhythm game in the series, which is not a terrible idea by the way, but this game was just not it. Trophy wise, this is incredibly simple. Get a B rank on 15 hard songs, get S rank on 10 songs on any difficulty, and make sure you activate Anthem with all 3 characters, which by the way, all you need to do for that is to fail a song and hit continue. It's actually harder to get these than not without going for them specifically if you have even the slightest amount of rhythm. You can get all the trophies within 2 hours really easily. In fact, I probably massively exaggerated that time. No more to add really, it's an incredibly easy game. I was a bit disappointed by it, and from what I gather, I'm not alone in that sentiment. I just wish it maybe had a few more songs and maybe a reason to keep playing, like unlockable costumes or something, that'd be cool. Easy trophies though, so there is that. The first proper platformer Gunvolt game on the list, and trophy-wise, it is incredibly easy. First, the vast majority of the trophies are just for clearing the main stages, so nothing to really talk about there, just beat the game. Other than that though, there's actually only 3 remaining trophies. First, beat the boss rush mode. This is unlocked after beating all the other special extra missions after beating the game. Not a lot to say on it, I guess it's the hardest actual gameplay wise, but it's not the most interesting. There's also unlocking every song, which from everything I can see seems to be completely random. Whenever you get 1,000 kudos in a stage, Lola will start singing a random song and you need to hear each of the 7 unlockable ones for the trophy. As I said, it's random, so trigger the song as much as possible by playing well for the best chance of unlocking all the songs quickly. Finally, you need to unlock all abilities from the shop. Obviously, this will likely need you to farm money. The best place I found online, and the one I used, is this one here in the Auto Fab plant. It's tedious, yes, but eventually you will have all you need to buy all the skills. I actually prefer Copen gameplay to Gunvolt. Hope that's not a controversial take, it's just a lot faster, which I do prefer. So when they released a game that was just Copen, that sounded tickety-boo to me, and I really enjoyed it. And the trophies don't need you to spend ages grinding out score, which is not my favourite thing to do. Yes, there's farming, but to be honest, it doesn't really take that long in the grand scheme of things. And we arrive at Gunvolt 1. Fun fact, this game was originally a lot higher on the list before I remembered something incredibly crucial for trophies. The main reason this game is hard for the platinum is because you need to get S+ on every stage. For whatever reason, the requirements for S+ are way higher than S. Now I'm sure you could do this by being good. Not me, but you could probably do this perhaps. In fact, there's lots of videos online of people being very good. It's actually very impressive and demoralizing at the same time. What I started doing though, which is probably the easiest way to do these, is using the Septimal Burst followed by Voltaic Chains strategy when there's at least 4 enemies on screen, while also having the Lethal Levelier and Adrenaline Lens Plus equipped for better kudos gain and having skills have a chance of not using SP. Notice I said chance, as in it's not 100% guaranteed. You need to be lucky, as the less SP you use, the more often you can use this strat and get a high score and better chance of an S rank. Is it cheap? Yeah, kinda, but it's still using the stuff in the game, so I'm gonna say it's fine. We're gonna allow this one. I really want to stress that you have like a 25% chance of not using SP every skill, and on top of that, you still need to play well. Like, hardest difficulty for good kudos, and not getting hit at all play well. In addition to that aforementioned luck. However, there is a way to make this considerably easier. Play on easy mode. Not to be confused with gutless mode, easy mode from the main menu, you have to start a new game. On this easy mode, the main thing is you won't lose kudos when you get hit, which gives you a lot more leeway when going for S+ ranks. You also kill things incredibly quickly, including bosses. You just don't lock onto things, you just hold the button. It's not very fun, and removes most of the challenge from the game, and you know, I don't really like playing on it, but it does work for platinum hunting. I actually forgot easy mode existed, and did a lot of this on normal before realizing and switched to easy. That's why I know about the voltaic chain strategy. On top of all that though, there's actually a lot more you have to do than just the S+ ranks. Learn all the skills, get all the weapons, and listen to all the songs. Unlike the X games, songs are not random and are instead for getting 1000 kudos on certain levels. They're level locked essentially. Weapons are for completing stages and skills are for leveling up, so you might probably need to do some grinding there. I'll quickly also mention the true ending needs you to find some collectibles and then beat the final boss with an accessory that removes your Provasion, which may be a challenge, though if you're struggling with that, those S+ ranks might be beyond you. Although, you know, easy mode. Finally, you need to complete all the challenges, which, to be honest, if you've got all the S+ ranks, you've done the hardest part. There's time trials for the stages, and there's some specific challenges for each stage, but if you can get the S+ rankings, you will almost certainly be fine, especially on easy mode. Without easy mode though, I would actually say this is one of the harder games to platinum. Originally it was in the top 3, so if you want a challenge, go for that one. The second of the Copen spin-offs is definitely harder than the first. A lot of this is due to the fact that there's a required hard mode for the true ending and also a trophy. However, most of the trophies are for defeating the bosses a certain way to get a dissection finish. This is not a difficult thing to do, it doesn't need a special weapon, you literally just use your main melee weapon instead of shooting it. Going back to hard mode, yes it is a lot harder, mainly because they take away your Provasion, aka the thing that makes the game near impossible to lose if you're not bothered about the score. Believe it or not, I actually do like this, as it makes you need to have to learn the enemy's attacks and patterns instead of just brute forcing it. They also change all the boss weaknesses on hard mode, which will likely make you need to do a different order to your normal mode run. I had a weird experience where I really struggled with hard mode on my first attempt, and yet when I did it for the second list, I barely struggled at all, and that is the main reason this game is so relatively low. It was almost a bit higher. Other than hard mode, there are a couple other trophies. First, unlock every song again. This is much the same as the first X game, randomly at 1000 kudos, as well as some unlocked from beating the boss rush mode. Finally, you need to beat the game within 1 hour. Thankfully, you only need to do normal mode for this. General advice for this is know the boss weaknesses ahead of time and go in a route to best take advantage of that. Also, yeah, helps to know what you're doing. Focus on dealing damage whenever possible, even if you need to take a Provasion hit. It's really useful for this mode. Oh, try not to die as well, that wastes time obviously. This means be careful around bottomless pits. Yeah, it wasn't just me, I know you did it as well. When compared to the first game's trophies though, I think I prefer this one, mostly due to there being no need to farm. Both games are fun in their own right, though I probably do prefer the first one in general. Did you forget about this game? I almost did. The crossover between Gunvolt Mighty No. 9 and Galgun that absolutely no one asked for is actually pretty fun. It's a game that gets better once you actually know how to play it. For example, I hated it at first, but then I actually learned to use abilities and elements and stuff. Yes, I really was that bad when I first played it. There's actually a fair few trophies worth talking about here. First, you have to beat the game as all 3 base game characters. Should probably mention this actually quickly. I didn't buy any of the DLC and didn't struggle too hard with any trophy. But yeah, of the 3 base characters, Ekiro is by far the hardest. There are some advantages to her, sure, like being able to fly briefly with the aerial skill, but this is offset by her being significantly weaker than GV and Beck, and also having like a third of their health. Damage reduction skill is almost a necessity for her unless you're really good, which I'm not. Hard difficulty isn't that much more difficult than normal though. I used Gunvolt for it and didn't struggle at all. Beating the game in an hour sounds hard, but I actually did it by accident on the hard mode playthrough. The most important abilities that I would say to get are damage reduction, obviously, from the intro stage, aerial skill from aviator stage, this unlocks double jump for Gunvolt and air dash for Beck, and flying for Ekiro, and get all the elements for the boss weaknesses. If you can, maybe get attack power from Brandish's stage 2 if you have room for it. There are other trophies you won't get first try, but once you lock in, aren't too bad at all. Like the burst combo one, which Ekaro is actually the best at, as her skill makes her invincible and lets you continue combos easier. Or also beating a stage with no damage, once you know what you're doing, not too difficult. The final trophy I want to highlight is for beating the game without changing your weapon slots. This isn't just a case of not being able to use boss weaknesses, you also don't get any abilities. So no attack power, no aerial skill, and no damage reduction, no anything really. This run actually needs you to be at least somewhat decent at the game. I did it with Gunvolt because he has skills that can help out a bit by default. I also read that some of the DLC characters might be better, like Jewel, but like I said, it is completely doable without them. The Platinum took me 5 playthroughs, though it's theoretically possible in 3, but the game isn't that long if you know what you're doing. The most important thing is to use damage reduction where you can, especially with Ekaro, and make sure to eat food when necessary. You will forget about that sometimes, I know I did. This is a surprisingly fun little game, and if you haven't tried it yet, I would actually very much recommend. Gunvolt 2 is probably the easiest of the 3 mainline games to platinum if you discount easy mode in Gunvolt 1, but we're not doing that, obviously. The majority of the trophies in this game are for S ranking each stage. I found S ranks a lot easier, and I mean a lot easier than the first game. There are more levels though, as you have both GV and Copen to go through, so it's entirely possible you might be good as one character and not the other. They do play fairly differently after all. Now I'm not going to go through every level, but there is the Garden 3 as Gunvolt, which I think is notable as you need to dodge 7 slashes. It's an attack that you're kinda supposed to die to, but it can be dodged with practice, and I do mean with a lot of practice. No one did this first try, and if you did, I think you're a liar. What you need to do is keep to either side of the screen so you have the most amount of space to dodge the final big slice and get a running start. It's likely you'll fail this a lot, don't be discouraged, you will get there with some practice. You just gotta get the timing down. Other than the ranking trophies, there's the true ending and true ending trophies. For the true endings for each character, you just need to beat both characters' stories and then beat the final stage again. For the true ending, you need to beat 80% of all challenges with both characters and beat the game again to unlock a secret epilogue that definitely isn't completely ignored in the next game. Yes, I am quite bitter about that, thank you for noticing. The challenges themselves are fairly simple in nature. Things like beating stages within a certain amount of time, and the fact you only need 80% means you can actually skip ones if you are particularly stuck on them. There are also more specific ones like breaking all the windows, which you may need to look up a guide for just so you don't miss anything, but as I said earlier, that is all taken into account for the ranking. The last trophy is for listening to all the songs. Like Gunvolt 1, this is not random and is instead for getting 1000 kudos on certain levels with certain items equipped with both characters in some situations. Gunvolt 2 might be my favourite of all the games. I really like having multiple playable characters that you can play as for the whole game, much better than having one character be just a temporary power-up. No shade throwing here, a little bit. Trophy wise, I really like that you don't need to do all the challenges. Some of them would be a right pain. S rank also feels like a reasonable rank to get that isn't too hard but also is not completely free. You still need to know how to play at least a little bit. Gunvolt 3, or Gunvolt Chronicles Kirin as it should be called, personally I think is a very mixed game. From that little dig, you may have been able to tell that Gunvolt is barely playable. In fact, outside of very specific circumstances we'll get to, it was actually a lot better to not play as Gunvolt and stay as Kirin the whole game. Although that sounds quite negative, I actually do like the game quite a lot. I said previous that I preferred Copen to GV, and wouldn't you know it, I actually also prefer Kirin's gameplay. Getting to trophies though, you can sort of divide the list into 3, clearing stages, image pulses, and rankings. Clearing stages is self-explanatory, so we won't go into that, but image pulses are randomly dropped from stages and they function as your abilities in this game. Each stage has a limited number that can appear over the selection, but it's still random which ones will show up. Getting a higher rank does increase the amount you get, and I also read somewhere that an update made to the game makes it so you're guaranteed a new one every time you play a stage, so that is nice if true. The rest basically revolve around rankings. Specifically, you need to get all S ranks, 10 S plus ranks, 3 S plus ranks, and 1 Azure Striker rank. You also need to beat all the stages on hard and 3 on very hard. Now this sounds like a lot, but I actually found this easier than expected. There are image pulses that let you get more kudos and keep you in the air longer. Basically, for your combo, you don't want to touch the floor and just chain from enemy to enemy. Yes, this takes practice and a bit of memorization where the enemies are, but you actually have more time than you would think in the air to make your next move. A few extras to note is that Azure Striker needs you to beat a level as just Gunvolt, which needs certain image pulses, and a shorter level would probably be the best. Very hard difficulty disables all your passive pulses, which can really harm your chances of getting a good score, and so I would not really recommend going for the S ranks on this difficulty. Unless you're like really good, that's fine, I'm not. Overall though, I really liked going for the high ranks in this game, and Kieran probably was my favourite character to play as. It just sucks that Gunvolt got such a reduced role in the supposed third Gunvolt game. In fact, this game in general is like the best gameplay, but the most arse story. 57 hours I spent on this. 57 hours of this. Striker Pack combined only took me about 60-ish, and that's me being mostly clueless and playing the wrong difficulty. And before you say this doesn't count because there's no Gunvolt in the title, Lola is right there. She's the only character. This absolutely counts. Now what is this, you may ask? It's Suika Game. It's literally just a Suika Game clone, way after the mass popularity had worn off. Is it fun? Yes, I'm not disputing that, it is very fun. For the hardest trophy, you need to reach Lola's final stage, or essentially match the two biggest things together. Really, you'll get every other trophy going for this, because while this sounds simple, in fact what you need to do is incredibly simple. It's actually a massive pain. By the end, you end up with very little room, and sometimes the game just launches everything in the air, and you need to be lucky and hope that things don't land in a way that just makes you lose. Oops. I don't even want to guess as to how many failed attempts I had. I get the feeling that would just make me sad. Seeing the hours spent is already enough to make me sad. There's not a lot to say though. This is the game. You just have to be good and very, very lucky. Would I recommend going for all achievements? Not if you have anything else going on in your life. 57 hours is a long time for admittedly very little content, but the Suika Game loop is pretty good and fun. It was very popular for a reason after all. And honestly, I think I had a good time, though by the end of it, I was glad it was over. If I was just casually playing it, like when I had a few minutes, I would love it. But because I was actually going for the trophies, I think I might have soured my own experience on it. Gunvolt 1 probably took me the longest at 4 and a bit days, and that's because I forgot about easy mode. How long did Puzzmix take? About a month. No, this is definitely number 1. You can't disagree with me. I mean, you can disagree, but you can't convince me I'm wrong. So, it's number 1. And that's all of them. Did you agree with the list, or would you have put some other games higher or lower? This ranking was actually really tight, and honestly, by the time this goes up, my order might have changed. How many of these do you have? Let me know in the comments. This one was very tough to rank, as I said. While you're down there though, why not subscribe? It's free, helps me out, and makes it easier for you to find my videos both old and new. For now though, I'm off, hunt them tropes, and I'll see you next time.